I was 31 years old, standing in my kitchen, holding my fiancé's phone, when my entire future cracked open without making a sound. No screaming, no dramatic confrontation, just a calculator. My phone had died that morning. I was running late, already half dressed, coffee cooling on the counter. He was in the shower, steam fogging the bathroom mirror, humming like everything in our life was solid and safe. We'd always shared passwords. That was the kind of couple we were, or so I believed. I unlocked his phone to check my work email. My thumb slipped. Instead of opening Chrome, I swiped to his app screen. That's when I saw it. A calculator app, except he already had one. This icon was almost identical. Almost. The numbers looked slightly misaligned, the background a shade too dark. The kind of detail you'd never notice unless something inside you was already uneasy. My chest tightened, a quiet, instinctive warning, the kind you don't want to listen to. I tapped it. A normal calculator opened. I laughed at myself under my breath. You're being paranoid. My hand still shook as I tried a random calculation. Nothing happened. I don't know why I did it next. I wish I didn't. I typed in his ex-birthday. The screen went black. Then it opened. Folders, screenshots, messages, photos. Thousands of them. My knees buckled. I slid down onto the bathroom floor, back against the cabinet, cold tile seeping through my clothes. The shower was still running, water pounding, steam rising, life continuing, completely unaware that I was watching it burn. I started reading. Can't wait until this is over. She's just a placeholder. After the wedding, 6 months max. Dad will have paid my loans by then. You're who I actually want. Each sentence hit like a slow, deliberate blow. My heart didn't race. It thudded, heavy and uneven, like it couldn't decide whether to stop or shatter. This wasn't doubt. This wasn't cold feet. This was a plan. Footsteps behind me. The shower turned off. The bathroom door opened. He looked at me, towel around his waist, smile fading when he saw my face. "What's wrong?" he asked. "You look pale." I didn't answer. I just held out his phone, the vault still open between us, and watched the color drain from his face. Before that morning, before the calculator and the vault and the quiet destruction, my life with him had felt earned. We met 3 years earlier at a networking event I hadn't even wanted to attend. A friend dragged me along, promised free wine and minimal small talk. I remember spotting him across the room. Tall, composed, not trying too hard. He wasn't loud or flashy. He listened more than he spoke. When we were introduced, he held my gaze just long enough to feel intentional, not intrusive. We talked about work first, then books, then travel. He asked questions that felt thoughtful, not performative. When the event ended, he walked me to my car without assuming anything. Texted me the next morning. Asked me to dinner like a grown man who knew what he wanted. That set the tone. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who planned ahead, paid his bills on time, called his parents every Sunday. Being with him felt safe in a way I'd never really experienced before. Not boring, not dull, just solid. Like I could exhale. We moved in together after a year, slowly, deliberately. We talked about finances before we shared a lease, talked about expectations, kids, careers, where we saw ourselves in 5 years. He didn't shy away from those conversations. If anything, he led them. That's why I trusted him. When he proposed 8 months ago, it wasn't flashy. No crowd, no spectacle, just us, sitting on the edge of a lake during a weekend trip he'd planned months in advance. He got down on one knee, voice steady, hands firm, no shaking, no dramatics. "I want to build a life with you," he said. "The boring days, the hard ones, all of it." I said yes without hesitation. The wedding planning followed naturally. 150 guests, venue booked, deposits paid, dress chosen, invitations sent. We'd sunk about $35,000 into it between the two of us. He covered the larger share without complaint, framed it as an investment in our future. His family loved me, or at least they approved. His father was polite, measured. His mother, warmer in public than private, but never openly hostile. I felt the pressure, sure, but I told myself that was normal. Weddings made people weird. His ex came up occasionally, 5 years together before me. A long history. He always spoke about her neutrally, almost clinically, said they'd grown apart. Different goals, different timelines. He assured me he was over it. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We shared phones, shared locations, shared routines. There was no secrecy. No late-night disappearing acts. No unexplained absences. When he traveled for work, he checked in. When I worked late, he left dinner warming in the oven. That's the part people don't understand when they hear what happened later. There were no obvious red flags. No gut screams. No constant anxiety. No moments where I felt like I was competing for his attention. I thought I was chosen. Looking back now, there were tiny things. Comments that didn't quite land. Jokes about marriage feeling like a checkpoint. A strange detachment when we talked about the future beyond logistics, but nothing that screamed run, nothing that justified suspicion. So when I sat on that bathroom floor, reading those messages, seeing myself reduced to a role, a financial strategy, a temporary solution, it didn't just hurt. It rewrote my entire memory of us. Every smile, every promise, every plan, all of it suddenly felt provisional. And the man I thought I was building a life with, he was standing on the other side of the door, towel around his waist, waiting for me to say something, still believing, for a few seconds longer, that his secret had survived. The first thing I noticed after that morning wasn't anger. It was how quiet my body became. Not calm, still. Like every instinct had gone rigid, bracing for impact. My hands stopped shaking, but my chest felt tight, compressed, as if my lungs were only allowed shallow breaths. I stayed seated on the bathroom floor while he stood there, frozen, watching me like a man calculating his next move. "Baby," he said carefully, not rushed, not panicked. "Wait." That word alone told me everything. People who are innocent rush. People who are caught slow down. I stood up slowly, joints stiff, legs unsteady but controlled. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the phone. I just looked at him, really looked. The familiar face, the man I slept beside, the man who had planned a wedding with me while planning something else entirely. "That's not," he started, then stopped, restarted. "It's not exactly what it looks like." I held the phone up between us, the screen still glowing faintly. "Which part?" I asked. My voice surprised me, low even. "The part where you called me a placeholder? Or the part where you planned to divorce me for money?" His jaw tightened. He ran a hand through his damp hair, water dripping onto the tile. "You're taking it out of context." That phrase, every liar's favorite shield. "There are 6 months of messages," I said. 6 months of planning. That's not context. That's intent. He exhaled sharply, frustration flickering across his face before he masked it. "We were just talking. It didn't mean anything." I scrolled, stopped on one message, turned the screen toward him. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Tuesday night, she'll be at her conference." I didn't raise my voice when I spoke. I was at a conference 3 weeks ago, Tuesday night. That's when his composure cracked. His shoulders dropped, his eyes glossed, not with immediate tears, but with that tight, restrained panic men get when control slips. He sat down on the edge of the tub, elbows on his knees, head bowed. "It was a mistake," he said. "I was confused." "For half a year?" I asked. Silence. Then, finally, the tears came, but not dramatically. No sobbing collapse. Just a few breaking exhales, his face tightening as if he hated himself for losing it. "I love you," he said. "She means nothing, I swear." I watched him the way you watch a stranger explain something you already know isn't true. "You plan to marry me," I said. "So, your dad would pay off your loans." He flinched. "You plan to leave me," I continued, each word deliberate, "after you took what you needed." "That's not," he shook his head hard. "You don't understand. It was just fear, wedding jitters. People panic." "People panic," I said, "and talk to their friends. They don't draft exit strategies." He reached for my hand. I stepped back. The rejection hit him harder than any accusation. He stood quickly, instinctively, like he needed to reassert ground. "We can fix this," he said, voice firmer now. "I'll cut her off. Right now. I'll block her. The wedding's in 3 weeks. We can still—" "No," I said. One word, calm, final. I walked past him, grabbed my charger, my wallet, my keys. The basics. The things that mattered. He followed me down the hall, still talking, still negotiating. "Please don't do this," he said. "Don't leave like this." "I'm not leaving," I replied, opening the door. "I'm stepping out of a lie." I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. But as I walked down the hallway, my heart finally caught up with me, each step pounding like it was asking the same question over and over. How long had I been living in a story that wasn't mine? I didn't go far that night. I drove on instinct, hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead while my mind replayed fragments I couldn't shut off. His voice. The messages. The way he said we can still like the future was a negotiation table and not something he'd already set on fire. I stayed at a friend's apartment, crashed on the couch, barely slept. When morning came, the shock wore off, and something colder took its place. Clarity. Over the next few days, I read everything again. Not like a woman hoping she'd misunderstood, but like someone building a case. Dates, times, screenshots, patterns. I noticed how deliberate it all was. How calm he sounded when he talked about leaving me. How practical, how prepared. This wasn't impulse. This was strategy. I spoke to a lawyer, asked what my options were. The answer wasn't satisfying. What he'd done wasn't technically illegal in our state. Immoral? Yes. Calculated? Absolutely. Criminal? No. Marrying someone under false pretenses wasn't fraud unless specific legal lies were involved. So I had a choice. I could cancel the wedding quietly, eat the deposits, let him rewrite the story, become the woman who panicked, who called it off last minute, who couldn't handle commitment. Or I could let him stand exactly where he wanted to stand and show everyone who he really was. That's when the plan settled into place. Not impulsively, not emotionally, calmly, methodically. I called him a week later, kept my voice neutral, controlled. "I've been thinking," I said. "I might have overreacted. Can we talk?" The relief in his voice was immediate, almost embarrassing. "Oh my God," he said. "Yes, thank you. I knew you'd understand." We met for coffee. He apologized, swore he'd cut her off, said he wanted only me. Cried, quietly, briefly, about how scared he was of losing me. I listened. I nodded. I told him we'd work through it. I told him the wedding was still on. He hugged me like he'd been saved. For the next 2 weeks, I prepared. I went to a print shop, printed 150 booklets, full screenshots, time-stamped, names visible, no commentary, no spin, just his words. The cover read, "The vows he actually wrote." I told the wedding coordinator I had a special program planned. She smiled, thought it was romantic. On the wedding day, I dressed calmly, showed up early, smiled, and played my role. Guests arrived. Ushers handed out the booklets. Most tucked them away, assuming they were harmless. At the altar, I watched him smile at me, confident, convinced he'd won. When the officiant announced my vows, I spoke clearly. "I thought about writing something traditional," I said, but then I realized he already had. And I held up the booklet. That was the moment everything changed. The sound that followed wasn't screaming. It was paper, pages turning, one after another. A ripple moving through the rows of guests as people began to read. The quiet expectancy of a ceremony fractured into whispers, sharp inhales, the scrape of shoes as bodies shifted uncomfortably in their seats. His smile didn't vanish all at once. It stuttered. He looked at the booklet in my hand, then at the ones opening around us. Confusion first, then calculation. His eyes darted, left, right, trying to assess damage, trying to regain control before it fully slipped. "What is this?" he asked under his breath. I didn't answer him. I addressed the room. "Page 1, I said, steady and audible. "A message from 6 months ago, where he explains that I'm a placeholder, that he's marrying me, so his dad will pay off his student loans." Gasps. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." His shoulders tensed. He leaned toward me, voice low. "Stop, please." "Page 5, I continued. "Plans to meet her while I was at work. Page 7 discusses cutting our honeymoon short so he could fly back to see her." The officiant froze mid-sentence, hands clasped awkwardly. He didn't know what to do. None of them did. His mother stood up. "What is going on?" she demanded, voice sharp, cutting through the murmurs. I turned slightly so she could hear me clearly. "Your son has been planning to divorce me about 6 months after today. It's all documented in those booklets. Thousands of messages. He admits he's marrying me for money and stability while wanting to be with his ex." Chaos broke loose. Bridesmaids rushed the aisles, trying to snatch booklets from guests. People pulled them back. Someone shouted. Someone else swore. His mother yelled my name. His father stayed seated, face pale, jaw set, eyes locked on the pages in his hands. I looked at him, the man who was supposed to be my husband. He wasn't crying. He was shaking, hands clenched, breathing shallow, mouth opening and closing like he wanted to speak but couldn't decide which lie might still work. His eyes were glossy, but the tears didn't fall. Men like him don't collapse when exposed. They brace. They harden. They look for exits. I leaned closer, just enough for him to hear me. "I found your Vault app," I said quietly. "The calculator one. The password was her birthday. You might want to be less obvious next time you plan something like this." His face went completely white. I straightened, turned away from him, and walked down the aisle alone. I didn't run. I didn't look back. Behind me, the room erupted. Arguments, accusations, a wedding imploding in real time. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, like my lungs finally had room again. I got in my car, hands steady, heart pounding hard but clean, and drove straight to the airport. He wanted a wedding everyone would remember. He got exactly that. I didn't turn my phone back on right away. At the airport, I moved through security on muscle memory alone, shoes off, bag on the belt, boarding pass scanned. I changed the honeymoon tickets at the counter without explaining more than necessary. The agent glanced at the date, raised an eyebrow, then nodded. People in that job had seen enough. I flew somewhere I'd never been before, a city where no one knew my name, where no one had watched me walk down an aisle that never led anywhere. I checked into a hotel late that night, dropped my bag by the door, and sat on the edge of the bed in silence. No tears, just a deep, bone-level exhaustion. When I finally turned my phone back on 4 days later, it vibrated so hard it nearly slid off the nightstand. Hundreds of messages, dozens of missed calls. I didn't open them all at once. I categorized them, the way you do when you need distance to stay functional. His messages first, a flood, angry, panicked, pleading, accusatory. "How could you do this to me? You're a monster. Please talk to me. I still love you. I'm going to sue you." Then his mother. Long voicemails, righteous fury, claims that I'd humiliated her son, destroyed his reputation, ruined his future. She didn't once mention the messages. Not once. His father sent 2 texts, short, measured, "Call me when you can." My family was different. My mom asked if I was safe. My brother texted, legendary, nothing more. He didn't need to say it. Friends were split. Some thought I'd gone too far. Most understood. A few admitted they'd suspected something was off but didn't know how to say it. Then there were messages from people I barely knew. Guests from the wedding. Apologies. Support. Curiosity. Strangers who had watched a lie collapse and wanted to know what came next. And finally, the message from her. Yes, her. The ex. "That was messed up," she wrote. "You didn't have to do that to him. He's devastated." I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. "You were helping him plan to marry me for money and then leave me. Stay out of my life." She replied almost immediately. It wasn't fraud. He just had doubts. 6 months of planning isn't doubt, I wrote. It's a con. She called me bitter. I blocked her. The escalation didn't stop there. The wedding venue charged a cleaning fee. Apparently, guests had gotten into arguments during the chaos. Security had to escort people out. Someone threw a booklet at someone else. $800. Worth every penny. I called the hotel we'd booked for the honeymoon suite before I changed my trip. Explained the situation. The manager paused, then laughed softly, not mocking, just incredulous. "We hear a lot of wedding stories," she said. "This is new." They refunded the room, another $2,300 back. Then I called my lawyer. He was quiet for a long moment after I explained everything. "I can't decide if that was brilliant or insane," he finally said. "Probably both." He told me the truth. Technically, she could try to sue for emotional distress or defamation. Realistically, she'd lose. Everything I shared was true. Screenshots, timestamps, no commentary. Truth was a defense she couldn't outrun. That night, her father called. I answered. "I heard what happened," he said. His voice was tired, controlled. A man who'd just realized the ground under him wasn't solid. My daughter told me her side. "Let's see." "I'm sure she did," I replied. Long pause. "Did her side include the part where she was planning to use me to pay off her loans before divorcing you?" I asked. "Because I have all the messages." Another pause, longer this time. "That won't be necessary," he said quietly. "Did you pay the loans yet?" I asked. "I was going to this week." "You might want to reconsider." He thanked me, apologized, hung up. Decent man, wrong person to trust. By the time I flew home, the story had taken on a life of its own. And it wasn't done with me yet. Home didn't feel like home anymore. When I unlocked the door to my apartment, the silence pressed in on me. Thick, unfamiliar. He'd moved some of his things in over the past few months. Not everything. Just enough to leave outlines now. Empty hooks. Bare spaces on shelves. The absence was louder than his presence ever had been. I walked room to room slowly. His toothbrush holder still sat by the sink. His favorite mug, Gone. The throw pillows he'd insisted we needed were still on the couch, perfectly arranged, like props from a life that had already wrapped filming. I didn't sit down. I boxed everything of his I could find. Shirts, shoes, books, chargers, small, intimate things that once felt shared and now felt contaminated. I worked methodically, breathing steady, hands sure. This wasn't rage. This was cleanup. I texted him once. Your things are boxed up. You can pick them up this weekend. Let me know when you're coming so I'm not here. He replied within minutes. Can we please talk face to face? No, I wrote. You can pick them up or I'm donating them. You owe me that much, he shot back. I don't owe you anything. Silence. On Saturday, he came with his sister and his mother. I wasn't there. A friend stayed to supervise, someone neutral, calm, uninvested in their drama. He texted me updates as it unfolded. They're here. Your ex looks rough. His mom is furious, giving me death glares. His sister asked where you were. I told her you didn't want to be here. She called you a coward. I didn't respond. Then another text. They're arguing. Mom blames the ex. Sister blames you. He hasn't said much, just standing there. That tracked. When men like him lose control publicly, they go quiet. Not reflective, strategic, waiting for the next angle. A few minutes later, they're taking the boxes. Mom just asked if you're keeping the ring. The ring. I'd forgotten about it. $8,500. Still in my dresser, exactly where I'd put it the night everything broke. I don't know, I texted back. They're gone, my friend wrote. Place is clear. He left a note. When I returned later that night, the apartment felt hollowed out. Too clean, too quiet. I found the note on the kitchen counter, folded carefully, like it deserved respect. It didn't. I read it standing up. I know you hate me. I know I messed up. But what you did was worse. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. My family is furious. I've lost friends. My reputation is destroyed. All because I had doubts. You could have just talked to me. Instead, you chose to be vindictive. I hope it was worth ruining my life. Not one apology. Not one acknowledgement of what he'd actually done. Just blame, reframed. I crumpled the paper and dropped it into the trash. That should have been the end. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, the harassment started. His mother called my mother, cried, accused, claimed I'd destroyed her son's life. My mom shut it down with a calm I'll always admire. Your son made his choices, she said. My daughter told the truth. His mother hung up. Then she posted online. A long, emotional rant about abusive women who punish men for having cold feet, about public humiliation, about emotional cruelty. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew. The comments split. Some rallied around her. Others, people who'd been at the wedding, called it out. And comment rose to the top. This wasn't cold feet. This was a planned con. There's a difference. She blocked anyone who disagreed. Then he posted vague quotes, victim language, references to betrayal and healing. He painted himself as wounded, misunderstood, and then, like clockwork, his ex posted too. A declaration of love, of standing by the man she loved through hate. They went public. 2 weeks after he was supposed to marry me. Someone commented, wasn't he engaged like 2 weeks ago? She replied, sometimes you can't deny a real connection. I laughed. Once. Out loud. Then sat in the dark, alone, feeling the weight of it all finally settle. This was the low point. Not the betrayal, not the wedding. The aftermath, where truth didn't immediately bring peace. Where doing the right thing still cost something. Where I wondered, for the first time, if standing up for myself had permanently changed how people saw me. I went to bed that night staring at the ceiling, heart heavy, body exhausted, asking a question I couldn't yet answer. Was honesty worth this kind of fallout? The call came from an unknown number on a Tuesday afternoon. I almost ignored it. Hello, I said finally, my voice neutral. Is this... The woman paused, checking her notes. My name? This is a law firm calling on behalf of your ex. I smiled, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. He'd like to discuss a potential settlement regarding the emotional distress caused by your actions at the wedding. I leaned back in my chair, fingers tapping once against the desk. A settlement? Yes. Our client believes your public disclosure of private communications damaged his reputation and future opportunities. He's willing to settle for $25,000 to avoid litigation. There it was. Not remorse, not accountability, a price tag. Let me get this straight, I said. He wants me to pay him because I exposed his plan to marry me for money and then leave me? Our client disputes that characterization. Of course he does. The woman launched into rehearsed language, defamation, emotional harm, privacy. I let her finish. When she paused, I spoke calmly. Defamation requires false statements. Everything I shared was true. Direct screenshots, time-stamped, his words. Truth is an absolute defense. You know that. Silence. So either you're a real lawyer billing him by the hour for a case that will go nowhere, I continued, or you're someone pretending to be one to scare me. Which is it? Another pause. Our offer stands, she said stiffly. You have 1 week. The line went dead. I called my lawyer immediately. They're bluffing, he said without hesitation. No legitimate attorney would touch that case. Ignore it. And if they do file? I asked. Then we countersue, wedding costs, emotional distress, fraud. He'd open himself up to far more than he can handle. He was right. The lawsuit never came, but the pressure didn't stop. Negative reviews appeared on my business page, vague accusations, no details. I reported them. Most were taken down. Then, one afternoon, my building manager called. There's a woman in the lobby asking for you, he said. Says it's urgent. What does she look like? I asked. He described her, the cousin, the loud one. Don't let her up, I said. If she doesn't leave, call the police. She left. A few days later, I ran into him. I was walking to my car after the gym when I saw him waiting near the curb, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. He looked thinner, not broken, just worn down. We need to talk, he said. No, I replied, unlocking my car. 5 minutes. I have nothing to say. Then listen, he snapped. What you did was unforgivable. I looked at him fully for the first time since the wedding. Really looked. You planned to use me, I said evenly. Everything I did was legal. Everything you did was manipulative. I made a mistake. For 6 months, I said. That's not a mistake. That's a plan. I would have stopped, he insisted. I was confused. You were confused about whether to keep lying to me or go through with the wedding first. His jaw clenched. You should have confronted me privately. You were about to make vows publicly, I said. People deserve the truth. He shook his head. You're heartless. I'm not the one who called their fiancé a placeholder. That did it. His eyes glossed, but he didn't cry. He stood there, breathing hard, anger and shame tangling in his expression. I loved you, he said quietly. No, I replied. You loved what I provided. I got into my car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing there alone, smaller than he'd ever seemed. That was the moment something shifted. Not because he apologized, he didn't, but because I realized I no longer needed one. The power he'd taken from me quietly, strategically, over months, I had taken back without raising my voice. And for the first time since the bathroom floor, I felt steady again. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves, emails, whispers, secondhand updates, like aftershocks you don't feel until you've already stopped running. 6 weeks passed. The harassment slowed, then mostly stopped. His mother blocked me on everything. He didn't try to contact me again after the parking lot confrontation. The bridesmaids who'd once defended him loudly moved on to the next drama that needed their attention. An actual law firm finally reached out. Not a lawsuit, just a formal letter requesting that I remove his contact information from the booklets if I had any remaining copies and confirm that I wouldn't distribute the messages further. It was reasonable. I didn't have any copies left anyway. The print shop had deleted the order after printing. My lawyer replied on my behalf, confirming compliance. That closed the legal door. Financially, everything settled into numbers. After refunds, the wedding cost me about $18,000. He'd originally contributed around $3,000. His father had planned to contribute $10,000, but pulled out once he saw the messages. Vendors came after both of us for what wasn't refundable. We split the remaining balances. Venue, caterer, photographer. He lost roughly $11,000 in total. I lost more. But money, I learned, heals faster than betrayal. I sold the engagement ring, got $6,200 for it. A loss, sure, but I didn't want to keep anything tied to a promise built on manipulation. I used that money to take a real vacation somewhere tropical. No schedule, no explanations, just long days, books, and the sound of water reminding me that time keeps moving. I started therapy. My therapist called it betrayal trauma. Said my response, public, decisive, dramatic, wasn't unhealthy, given the circumstances. The anger had protected me when I needed it to. Now it was time to process what lived underneath. The grief, the disorientation, the fear of ever trusting that deeply again. Through mutual acquaintances, the few still overlapping, I heard updates. He'd moved in with his ex, They were official now, public posts, carefully curated happiness, the kind that needs an audience. Her student loans were still unpaid. His father never transferred the money. She complained about payments online. Some friends distanced themselves, others stayed, though even they admitted what they'd done was wrong, just not wrong enough in their eyes to justify my response. My family stayed steady. My mom checked in every week. My brother took me out for beers once, clinked his glass against mine, and told me he was proud of me. My dad listened quietly, then nodded. "You did what you had to do," he said. Work improved. Business picked up. Apparently, having a reputation for not tolerating manipulation is attractive to the right clients. I wasn't dating, not even close. Trust doesn't reset just because time passes. But I was sleeping again, eating normally, laughing occasionally, not sharply, not defensively, just genuinely. One night, a message came in from someone I didn't know. "Do you regret what you did at the altar? Do you think it went too far?" I stared at the screen for a long moment, because for the first time, the answer didn't feel complicated anymore. I replied to the message simply, "Do I regret it? No." Not because it didn't hurt, not because it didn't cost me money, time, or the future I thought I was walking toward, but because staying silent would have cost me myself. I could have canceled the wedding quietly. I could have let him save face. I could have walked away politely while carrying his lie on my back. And if I had, he would have controlled the narrative. He would have said he had doubts, that I was emotional, that I overreacted, that the ending was mutual. I would have been erased from my own story. So I chose truth. Not screamed, not exaggerated, not twisted. Just documented, undeniable truth, spoken out loud before vows that were already false. Some people judged me for it. Some thought it was extreme. Some believed his version anyway. And that's the final lesson I carry forward. You cannot make everyone accept the truth, but you can refuse to live inside a lie. I didn't expose him to be cruel. I exposed the truth because I deserved to leave without being rewritten. He made his choices carefully, over months. I made mine once, clearly. He has to live with what he built on manipulation. I get to live with clarity. And clarity doesn't shout. It doesn't justify itself. It just lets you breathe again. That's how I know I did the right thing. If this story made you uncomfortable, that's okay. Truth usually does, especially when it disrupts a version that was convenient. If you've ever felt pressured to stay quiet to protect someone else's image, if you've ever been told that telling the truth made you the villain, you're not alone. Sometimes strength isn't forgiveness. Sometimes it isn't silence. Sometimes it's saying, "This is what happened," and walking away without asking permission. If this story resonated with you, feel free to leave a comment. If you've lived through something similar, your voice might help someone else feel less alone. And if you want to hear more stories like this about boundaries, truth, and choosing yourself, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for listening. This chapter is closed.